On cold nights over Belgium, witnesses described a silent black triangle gliding above rooftops, its lights fixed and unnervingly steady. What kind of craft can hang in the sky like that and vanish without a sound? The sightings gathered in the late 1980s and early 1990s, when a small country suddenly became the center of one of Europe's most talked-about aerial mysteries. Belgium's dense towns, highways and military airspace made every report harder to ignore. It was a place where short distances mattered, where a strange light could be seen by people in one town and then echoed by another miles away. That geography helped turn scattered stories into something that felt connected. Before the famous wave, Europe had already seen a growing fascination with unidentified craft, stealth technology, and the possibility that advanced objects could move in ways conventional aircraft could not. Belgium's reports arrived into that atmosphere of uncertainty. Then came the first wave of claims. People looking up and noticing a shape too large, too quiet, and too deliberate to dismiss as a normal plane. The triangle became the image that stayed with the case. Some described a dark underside and 3 bright points at the corners, while others remembered a central light that seemed to breathe or pulse. The details varied, but the geometry kept returning. What made the reports harder to shrug off was the calmness of many witnesses. These were not just sky watchers. They included police officers, drivers, and families who said the object moved with impossible smoothness. In several accounts, the craft appeared to travel slowly, almost ceremonially, before accelerating in a way that seemed to erase distance. That contrast, gliding, then gone, became one of the case's most unsettling patterns. The most compelling stories came from moments when multiple people watched the same sky at the same time. Shared observations matter because memory can be flawed, but coordination across strangers is harder to explain away. That is why the night of March 30th, 1990, became central to the legend. Across the country, calls and sightings multiplied, and the triangle seemed to move from rumor into public event. Witnesses reported a formation of lights that held position with eerie precision, as if the object was not fighting the air at all. The silence was almost as important as the shape itself. Belgian investigators and journalists soon found themselves following a trail of overlapping testimony. The more they compared notes, the more the case looked less like a single misidentification and more like a recurring phenomenon. One of the strongest elements was the consistency of the triangle motif across different towns and different nights. People did not all describe it the same way, yet the core image kept reappearing with stubborn regularity. Another detail that kept the mystery alive was the scale. Some witnesses believed the object was enormous, spanning a portion of the sky that made ordinary aircraft seem implausibly small by comparison. That sense of size was paired with a strange steadiness. Helicopters wobble, planes bank, and drones drift in the wind, but this thing was often described as level, composed, and almost engineered to be watched. The Belgian Air Force eventually became part of the story because the sightings were too widespread to remain purely private folklore. When official attention arrives, a mystery gains weight even if it does not gain certainty. Radar returns were discussed, but they never settled the matter cleanly. Some supporters saw that as a sign the object was using technology beyond ordinary detection, while others questioned how complete the data really was. Then came the famous pursuit by fighter jets, a moment that gave the case its most cinematic edge. According to later accounts, pilots chased lights that seemed to change altitude and speed in ways that defied easy tracking. For many people, that was the point where the story crossed from odd sighting into serious enigma. If trained pilots were seeing something unusual, then the question became not whether people looked up, but what they were actually seeing. The triangle's behavior remained the hardest part to fit into a normal frame. Witnesses said it could hover, drift, and then move off with a smoothness that felt controlled rather than accidental. Just as important, the sightings were not confined to one social class or one kind of observer. Farmers, commuters, officers, and children all entered the record, creating a patchwork of testimony that is difficult to dismiss as a single shared mistake. Yet the conventional possibilities deserve space too. Venus, aircraft lights, atmospheric effects, and the power of expectation can all distort what people believe they saw, especially on dark nights with little reference point. Some skeptics also point to the era itself, a period when stealth aircraft, experimental aviation, and public anxiety about the sky could make an unusual shape feel more extraordinary than it was. That context matters. Still, the case does not rest on one witness or one photograph. It rests on the accumulation of many imperfect but overlapping reports, each adding a little more pressure to the same unanswered question. The most difficult question is why the triangle description persisted so strongly. If the sightings were only confusion, why did so many people, in different places, converge on the same unsettling geometry? That persistence is what keeps the Belgian wave alive in memory. Decades later, the case still sits between public record and private wonder, refusing to settle into a simple category. Perhaps the triangle was a rare convergence of misread lights, human expectation, and unusual aircraft activity. Or perhaps witnesses briefly saw something that moved through our skies with a level of control we still cannot fully account for. What remains is the feeling that the story contains more than one layer. The reports are human, the explanations are possible, and yet the central image, the silent triangle over Belgium, still resists being reduced to a simple mistake. In the end, the Belgian UFO wave endures because it asks a question that never quite goes away. How many witnesses, how much consistency, and how much silence does it take before the sky becomes a genuine mystery? And if something unusual really did move over Belgium in those years, then the deeper puzzle is not only what it was, but why it appeared in such a disciplined, triangular form. That shape still lingers. For all the files, interviews, and theories, the case remains suspended between explanation and astonishment. The lights may have gone out, but the question they left behind is still very much alive. Even now, the Belgian wave feels less like a finished case than a reminder that some skies are larger than our categories. The triangle may have been seen for only moments, but its shadow has lasted for decades.